Hey guys, so today I'm going to do a test between two different quads, and I will throw the specs of those two different quads up now. You'll notice all the things that are different are going to be highlighted in red, which there's not very much, just the motors and the battery. And the weights are slightly different just because the 6S battery weighs about 10 to 15 grams more than the 4S battery. We're going to fly and you'll see the difference. I don't want to talk about it too much, I just want you to see exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking about the difference between the two. So why do anything different than just fly them and you can tell the difference. Alright, hey guys, so we're back after those flights. You probably noticed some differences in those in those flights, and I will kind of go over that now. So first of all, we're going to go over the battery voltages, what battery voltage I landed at, which they are the same, but I will go ahead and go through it individually and give you the exact voltages so you can see that. These are the batteries that I flew. It is 90 degrees outside, so just take that in mind when you're talking about they're still a little warm. It's been 10-15 minutes. Then we're going to talk about the differences between these two rigs and the hardware involved. Then we'll talk about the pros and cons of 6S versus 4S, and then the last thing will be why haven't I done this sooner. So first of all, let's go ahead and do the voltage of the 4S, which I landed at around 1100 milliamps on the OSD, and it's at 14.8 volts, which is equivalent to 3.75, 3.67, 3.75, 3.67. So this battery is well within the safe limit of landing. I could have pushed it down to 14.5, which would be around 3.5 volts per cell. So I could have continued flying, but from my experience, flying that low doesn't really give you any kind of extra. You just stay in the air. You're not really having fun, because towards the end of a 4S battery, you start to get battery sag, and it starts to become less fun. And you have to adjust your flying style based on the battery sag, because when you start getting that low, you full throttle and it goes to like 12 volts. That doesn't really help you very much. Now we'll go to the 6S battery, and I landed this one at roughly 950 on the OSD milliamps drained. So this one's at 22.1 volts, which is 3.73, 3.67, 3.72, 3.65, 3.67, and 3.68. So again, these are roughly around the same voltage, right around 3.7, 3.72 volts when you talk about average. And like I said, it did drain about 950 on the OSD, which is an 1100 milliamp if you're going off of the 80% rule. Like this can go farther down and you won't feel voltage sag. So I could have pushed it a little further, probably drained about 1000 milliamps out of it, and it would have been fine. So I probably could have got another 15 to 20 seconds in the air without having any issues whatsoever, but I just wanted to land it and be safe. With that being said, you don't really feel voltage sag or voltage drop when you fly at 6S, because you have so much more voltage to play with. So that's kind of one of the main benefits over 4S and 6S. You do have a more consistent feel over the entire battery, where 4S you kind of have to compensate, and I'll talk about that later in the pros and cons. So next we're going to talk about the differences between these two rigs. So I have the 4S setup and the 6S setup. The camera in this one's different because I am trying something, but that doesn't really matter. It's both CCD. It's just a Swift 3 micro or something like that. So that's the only real difference, other than the battery. And then the main difference between these two is this one has 1700 kV motors with N52 magnets, which are the stout magnets, and then I have a new 6S capable motor that is 1700 kV. These are 2300 with the N48 magnets, which is the silk bell, which are completely compatible, and the N52s give you a little bit more power on 4S and 6S, a little bit more bite, but I preferred the N52s on 6S. Gave it that extra yaw feel that I really wanted, including the yaw feel when you get with 6S, because you're increasing the voltage, you have a lot more torque. The only other difference is the 470 microfarad low ESR capacitors. That is really the only difference. These are both running KISS 32 amps, and I was just told to put capacitors on there on each ESC to cut down on voltage spikes. I was told to do that by Felix himself, which is the creator of KISS hardware and firmware. So anyways, that is the only difference between these two quads. The Steele PDB has been made to handle 6S since it was made. It has no problems handling 6S. There have been no issues with filtering power, noise in the video, anything like that. You just literally plug it in. The one thing that I was scared of was like the big pops when you plug in 6S compared to 4S. When you plug in 6S to an XT60 or something, you get a loud pop. You can see it like sparking in there, and I thought it would kill XT60s after a while, because I know with a lot of high voltage setups, it can hurt connectors because you are popping and causing a big spark inside there, and it can damage the connector. But I haven't really had any issues. I've flown about 90, I'd say 90 to 100 packs through this particular quad. No issues whatsoever. Motors come down fairly cool considering it is 90 degrees outside. Let's go ahead and move on to the pros and cons of 6S and the differences. The main difference between 4S and 6S, as far as a pro, we'll start with the pros and then we'll work to the cons. The pros are you get more flight time. On average, I've flown at this particular environment and I'm getting on 4S out of about, let's say, an average of 10 packs, because I came out here the other day and just flew all of my packs on 4S and then flew all of my packs on 6S, and I have about 10 each. I hear a phantom. The general rule, or the general time that I'm getting on 4S on this particular environment, which I said, I might not have said, but this is a very high energy environment as far as like you're gonna draw a lot of current here, you're gonna waste a lot of battery here because it's open. You're gonna fly around, you're gonna be like, oh, that's boring, I'm gonna pop over this and do that. So you're gonna do a lot more here with amp draw. On 4S, I'm getting on average 1 minute and 50 seconds to 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Out of the 10 batteries that I flew, that was the average flight time. On 6S, same exact flying style. I'm not having to like use as much throttle to do the things that I want to do, but it's the same style energy, like same high energy flying style. I'm getting 3 minutes and 10 seconds on the low end and 3 minutes and 30 to 3 minutes and 40, sometimes even 4 minutes on the high end. So if you're talking about differences between flight times, it's almost double on 6S for the same flying style. And you can imagine, obviously people say my setup is very efficient, and yes, it is compared to a lot of other 4S setups. If you're flying in a building like Conti, which I've been flying in the abandoned building that all my Germany stuff's been flown in, and I'm getting like 5 minutes on 4S, you can imagine I could probably stay in the air for 10 minutes on 6S doing the exact same stuff. If you do the whole, you know, I'm getting double the flight time. So that is a huge positive for 6S. Other positives, there's a lot more yaw authority, there's a lot more linear feel across the entire battery with 6S over 4S. You don't have to compensate midway through the battery for voltage sag. Yeah, and really those are the main pros. The main pro that I think everyone that's flown 6S is going to tell you is that the battery feels more consistent over the entire battery, which is awesome, because with 4S you have to compensate about midway through. Depending on what you're doing, you're going to have to compensate based on, you know, hey, I can't do this dive anymore because I don't have enough power, or I'm going to have to add throttle here earlier because I don't have enough throttle or enough power to get out of this dive at the end. Now we'll talk about the cons. So the cons of 6S versus 4S. You do lose a little bit of throttle resolution. You probably noticed in the video that I actually am staying in lower throttle range on the 6S versus the 4S. The 4S setup is a 2300. The 6S is equivalent to about a 2600 kV 4S setup. So you are staying lower in the throttle range. It does hover lower, but you do have more power on tap. But also with that more power on tap, you can have the tendency to balloon coming out of things. If you freak out like during a dive and add too much throttle, you can balloon up. If you are used to, you know, flying really low and having a lot of resolution to be able to maintain that throttle, because when you're flying low, you're always battling translational lift with wind coming in, wind, you know, downwind, tailwinds, headwinds, all of the stuff, crosswinds, all of that is going to affect how the quad floats. And you have to add and compensate throttle to that. On 4S, you have a lot more room to do that with, because there's a lot less RPM and there's a lot less voltage to really like add that torque. So on 6S, you're gonna deal with a little bit less throttle resolution. So if you're a beginner and you wanna get into like really flying low and controlling throttle, I would say 4S is probably gonna be a better option. Just because you lose a little bit of throttle resolution and you gain so much power, it can be very easy to balloon out of something if you're diving and you're not used to it, especially on a really lightweight quad. Ballooning with a lower camera tilt could be extremely prominent in your flying if you're not used to flying on 6S and having all that extra power, which you don't have to have that much extra power because you could run a lower kV setup, but that's just based on the setups that I'm flying here. Another con is the batteries are a little bit more expensive. Typically a 4S battery is between $20 and $30 for a 1300, a good quality 1300. And typically a good 6S battery is gonna be between 30 and 40, sometimes pushing up into the $45 mark. It just depends on the battery. But that's one of the cons is, you know, you're gonna spend a little bit more, but you're getting double the flight time. So can you really complain? And then the other thing is you're gonna have to add capacitors if you're running certain ESCs. I can tell you, for example, I've been working with the KISS 4-in-1, their new 25 amp one, and it doesn't need capacitors. You just plug it in, it goes, works on 6S on a low amp draw 6S. It's rated at 5S. I've been flying it on 6S, having no issues. But I don't want people going out there and be like, oh, he said it can fly on 6S, it'll do 300 amps, and then pff, blow it up. So, you know, my setup's drawing 70 amps at full throttle roughly, and it's very efficient, and it's rated to 100 amps, and I've had no issues on 6S with that 4-in-1 with the KISS V2 setup. And then the last thing, it's probably getting really long, but the last thing is why haven't I done this sooner, and, you know, why have I decided to do it now versus, you know, a year ago or something like that? People have been flying 6S for a while. Why is this something new to me, and why do I think it's viable? Why would I switch? So I've been flying the same 4S setup for about 3 years now, roughly. An Alien with 4S, and obviously some components have changed here and there, like just upgraded ESCs, you know, video transmitters have gotten smaller, receivers have gotten smaller, generic stuff like that, motors have changed, but for the most part it's been roughly the same 4S setup, drawing about the same amps. When I've flown 6S before in the past, like 2 years ago is probably the first time I flew 6S, and to me the batteries just were too big. That was my main gripe, was the batteries were too big and it was too heavy. The other thing is it was very difficult to tune 6S and make it feel good in the air, because it is actually difficult to fly 6S smoothly getting it tuned well, because it does have so much more voltage and so much more torque. It can be very difficult to tune and make it look smooth and also feel good in the air. So if you have it feel good in the air and it's not loose, then it usually has vibrations, and if you have it loose, then it doesn't have vibrations, but it doesn't feel good to fly. So that's kind of been my gripe with it, other than the size of the batteries. And also, the technology has changed as far as ESCs and stuff like that. A lot of things that came out in the past that say they were rated at 6S weren't really rated at 6S. And I just think the increase in technology, the lower latencies between flight controller and ESC have enabled you to be able to tune this stuff and make it feel good like a highly tuned 4S setup, which for me is just, you know, cranking the P's as high as they'll go before vibrations, and then running as many filters off as possible so I can get that really organic feel out of the quad, and it feels really tight in the air. So that's kind of why I haven't done it. And now you're talking about batteries like this particular Thunder Power, which is an 1100 milliamp pack, is 180 grams versus 160 on this 4S 1300. So you're only talking about 15 grams more, but you're talking about an increase of watt hours. So the watt hours on the 4S battery 19.2, the watt hours on the 6S battery are 24.4. So you're talking about like a 25-30% increase in watt hours for 15 grams. That's crazy. And you know, I don't see a reason not to do it. And I also think that, you know, going to 6S now is more viable for other people, not just me. I want something that works every time out of the box, and I don't want to be using something that's going to give other people problems. That's kind of been my mentality since the beginning. You know, I want a reliable setup. I want to be able to go out and fly every day. I don't want to have to tinker every day. I don't want to go outside, have crazy power, and then blow something up and be like, oh, this is a good product, and then, you know, 10 people buy it and 8 of them have problems with it and the other 2 just don't even fly it or something like that. I want something that people can go out and fly, mainly myself, and just the byproduct that other people have good experiences with it. But, you know, I want something that's reliable, and I haven't found that in 6S until now. So yeah, that's my thing. There's a lot of talking, but a lot of information to go over. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe. And if you haven't tried 6S yet, you might want to consider it. See ya.